I'm not in the business of making laws. And I saw what happened to the measure that's on the June ballot. Supervisor Ellsberg tried to put a very modest measure on the ballot that would have increased pensions, increased contribution rates. That is the percentage that the employee pays into their pension from their salary, from 7.5% for police and fire to 9%. Now this will only affect folks in the future, people that were hired after this law passed. He also tried to make it so all other employees would pay at least 7.5%. What happened is that his measure was amended. And at first, it was amended to include a 7% raise for the employees that would have had to pay 7%. And so when that happened, actually Supervisor Ellsberg took his name off of it. And then he also had a provision in there that would require the last 3 years to be used to figure out what your pension will be, and that was met with objections. So they ended up changing that to 2 years. So what impact will that have? It will have absolutely no impact on our current situation until probably about 20 years from now. And over the next 40, 50 years, we'll see some savings, but there will be no present savings now because it doesn't affect any existing employees. And so what I decided to do is I spent 2 months working with an attorney and others to come up with a law that would help shift some of the burden of these costs over to the employees. Now, right now you might ask, well, what do employees pay now? Existing employees for the city pay, half of them pay nothing into the pension, 0. The other half pay 7.5%. Like I pay 7.5%. And so what this would do is require all employees to pay 9 to 10%. Police and fire would pay 10%. Why would they pay more? Because they get a better benefit. They retire at 55 with 90%. And because they get a better benefit, it makes sense that they would pay a little bit more. For other employees, they would pay 9%. It also makes a change to health care. Currently now, employees receive 100% of their own health care. And the city pays 75% of dependent health care. And it would simply change that to require that city employees pay 25% more, a 50-50 share. This measure would save $170 million a year. It would save $80 million on the pension side and about $80 million, $80 to $90 million on the healthcare side. This measure, I think, will pass if it gets on the ballot. But that's the question. Can it get on the ballot? In order to get it on the ballot, we've got to get 46,000 signatures by July 6th. We're about almost a third of the way there. So I'm here today to ask for your help, because this is not going to happen without the support of the people. Now, a couple questions that are often asked. Well, geez, isn't this unfair? You're changing the pension benefit for an employee after they have begun working. And it doesn't change the pension benefit at all in any way. The only difference is that you contribute more towards your own pension. That's the only difference. And the city charter says that the contribution level of employees shall not be more than 10%. And so that's the provision that we are relying upon in asking to make this change. I think the second question that comes up is, why are you doing it? You know, as a city employee. Believe me, my wife asked me that question when I told her I was going to do this. She goes, wait a minute, is that going to affect what we pay? I said, yeah. I think that that's the right thing to do. I think that this is something that may be unpopular. Obviously with city employees, nobody wants to pay more. I understand and I get that. But if we don't do something, the consequence is that our city will go bankrupt. It will go bankrupt. Now, people will point out, wait a minute, the pension fund's not going to go bankrupt. Why? Because it's got to be filled up every year to 97%. So it's true, the city will go bankrupt before the pension fund goes bankrupt. Some people say, well, it's better if San Francisco goes bankrupt. Look at Vallejo, right? Then you can renegotiate all your contracts, you can start all over again. And that's what they did. The police and fire departments of Vallejo refused to negotiate over their salaries. And as a result, Vallejo declared bankruptcy. Guess what they're paying now there? Their contribution rate in Vallejo is 13.5%. That was ordered by the bankruptcy judge. So that's what they're paying in Vallejo. So this measure is a very modest measure. It doesn't change it to a 401k, but it at least requires employees to share in the cost of their pensions. And I think that makes all the sense in the world. And so, in order to make this happen, it's going to take a tremendous effort to get the word out. So we have these brochures that explain what this is, why people should sign the petitions. We have the petition that sets forth the law. We have a signature places right here. And we have a great website, SF Smart Reform. SF Smart Reform. Now you might ask, well, wait, pension can't be all the problem. Are there other problems? Yes, there are. Right? We have, what, 4 out of $5 are spent in San Francisco before you wake up in the morning. There are spending set-asides that were voted, in many cases, by voters in better times. How can you plan your household spending if 4/5 of your money is already spent? You can't. And that's one of the problems that we have. Because the hands of the decision makers are tied. So I think we need to change this, or at least look at this. What about spending? Spending in the city, one of the things that was interesting today at the budget speech was the solution to fixing the problems at the crime lab was to give the police department another $5 million to, quote, fix the crime lab. I mean, where else in the world would you be rewarded for incompetence? Seriously. In business, you're like punished. You get more staff. It's mind-boggling to me. And no question. There are a lot of areas where we can say, so why pensions? Because this is one of the most important reforms that we have to take on. If we don't do something now, it's going to consume us and subsume us. And so I'm here to ask for your support. I'm going to need your help to make this happen, and we will make this happen. Any questions?